Hello, everyone. My name is Jen Kober. Welcome to my podcast, Bitchin' Over Biscuits, where we tackle a different genre of podcast every week, take a deep dive into that topic with our surprise celebrity guest. As always, I am joined this week by my producer, Mr. Mike Brignac. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm happy to be alive because I survived yet another tornado in my city.
Oh, that's right.
Wow.
That's right. The tornadoes were hitting the South. And folks, our surprise celebrity guest this week is one of my favorite comedians, one of the smartest ladies I know. You can hear her on her podcast, The Dork Forest, or on the Jackie and Laurie Show. Please put your hands together, or whatever you've got, smack it around. It's Miss Jackie Kashian.
Woo! You were just on the Dork Forest.
I was just on the Dork Forest. In fact, today I am wearing my Dork Forest t-shirt that
That's
you
right.
so lovingly sent me in the mail.
In the mails, in the snail mails.
In the
There it
snail
was.
mails. I
Yep.
was like, what is this package that's not from Amazon? Who did this come from? Who did this? And it was you, Jackie Kashian.
It was me.
You are a miracle worker.
You dorked out about the Wonder Women of essentially
Yes.
70s and 80s television.
It was a fantastic conversation.
It was a
loved
great
talking
episode.
to you.
Yeah, it was a good one.
And I'm always so happy. This week, our Bitchin' Over Biscuits topic is history. I thought there was no one better to talk with me about history than the person who puts more history in their act than I've ever seen and makes it work. God bless you, because no one knows anything. Before we get to our topic, at hand, of course, it's not Bitchin' Over Biscuits without biscuits. And so this morning, I am having my lovely lady Brooke has again feasted me
good
with her
Lord.
talents.
Come on.
It is a cheddar garlic biscuit that she has spread with pimento cheese, and she's put a
What?
little beef smoked sausage on top of
Yeah,
it.
she has.
And that is what she made. Now, to balance that out, she has also made me a bowl of fruit. A bowl of
Yeah,
fruit.
a nice fruit
because
salad. A nice fruit
She
salad.
does not want me only eating the sausage pimento cheese biscuit. And here's the greatest thing about my lady. She peeled the apple. Do you see this?
Come
She
on.
peeled that apple.
What? I was going to
before she
ask you what
sliced it
fruit
up.
that was because it looked like mango or something.
I
But no,
know,
it's a
it is
peeled
just
apple.
Apple. She peels it in one long strip.
And
It's
the thing
fucking
is
amazing to watch.
it's amazing to watch. Go ahead.
No, I can't.
You're not
I
going to
can't
crunch it.
It'll be all over. It'll be all over.
It'll be all over the audio.
We'll get the freaks. We'll get the freaks coming out.
Anybody want to see my feet? Come on. And ooh, Fresca. Nice work on the
Yes.
Fresca.
And I'm washing it down with the Fresca. What are you eating this morning, Jackie?
Well, my loved one, Andy Ashcraft, made soda bread. And so I wish I had not, I'm afraid I consumed it prior. But you would have loved it. You would have loved it because what I did was I cut off a nice big piece of soda bread. It was a nice soda bread. And then I put butter and avocado on it and then a fried egg.
That sounds good.
Oh, yes. Yes, Jackie Kashian,
Yep.
that is amazing. Mike
And we
Brignac,
too
what-
had strawberries. Yes.
Oh, I love that. What big biscuit have the Brignacs made this morning?
Okay, so I thought I'd try my hand at making my own, and my dad makes I think a simple 3-ingredient biscuit. I didn't ask him. I just went from what I thought. So I used flour, butter, and milk, but we had no milk, so I used 8 ounces of sour cream. It's not good. It's not.
Oh,
a
it
good
is not.
It's not.
Wait, but sour cream can sometimes be amazing.
Not,
Maybe cream cheese. Maybe cream cheese would
I
have been
think
the
cream
way.
cheese. This is a very dense.
You
It
know
tastes
what?
like dry sour cream.
Did you put any
Oh.
salt? Salt. You put some salt.
No, I
in
didn't
as
think
well.
about salt.
Baking
Butter,
powder,
flour,
baking-
sour cream. 3 ingredients.
No.
You know what?
Okay.
I feel like you could have been helped by a little seltzer water. Just like
It
a
could have
little
been helped.
something to lighten up.
Just gonna say, the internet is right there.
I want to do this. Make a stand. I'm doing this.
Right, you did take a
myself.
stand. You did take a stand,
now I know.
It looks like you're gonna eat it.
I'm hungry, so I will
Okay.
eat this hockey puck of a biscuit.
I will say that if you buy a box of Bisquick, all you have to do is
Oh,
add water to
Right.
that mix. and
That's
it makes a fantastic biscuit.
Can I tell
You're
you
right.
something
I've been
about
poor
biscuits
and made that.
and pancake mix and biscuit
Please
mix?
tell me.
My stepmother hated cooking so bad, she ruined the. It was always gross. She made the. I never had a good pancake until I went to college,
Oh,
and
Really?
she
She
made them
messed up
twice a week.
Bisquick.
Twice a week.
Oh, wow.
She made us pancakes twice a week, and they were always either too dry or too wet. Because Thursdays was fruit in the pancake day, and she'd just get a can of fruit and pour it in. It was a lot like how Mike bakes. Like didn't look into any sort of.
Well, in her defense, the internet was not as readily accessible at the time. She would have had to look it up in a book.
I have all kinds of defense. There were 6 of us. They weren't her children. She was left. She was like, "You're not going to starve on my watch, but it's not going to be edible. Here you go. It's not going to be delicious."
Oh, I love that. I'm sorry, Jackie. My mother never made breakfast either. She did. She could make a good pancake when she tried, though the first 4 were always like burnt and misshapen. You don't get
Right,
the hang of pancakes.
Yeah, there's the first
few in.
Yeah, you got to get a few in. It's I will say, Nancy, she fed us she made 3 meals a day. Mondays and Wednesdays were egg days, and Tuesdays and Thursdays were pancake days. And this was for 6 years. And then Friday she had to go to work in early, and my dad was never around. I do a joke about how my father, on one of the old albums, my father's a lot like radiation. We never saw him, but he affected all of our lives. And so.
And that is why I love Jackie Kashian.
It's a weird radiation joke, you guys. Come on out.
That's funny that you have these. So she was feeding you. She was taking care of you, but not well. Like you didn't enjoy the meals.
No, well, we enjoyed them better than my mother, who passed away, who didn't make any meals. She was. You know how, like, here's the thing about parenting. Sometimes it can be done very poorly, and it didn't mean that everyone wasn't doing their best. You really gotta just go.
Answer.
Everyone is genuinely trying, and we did live. So,
well, you know what? My friend is having a baby, and this will kind of segue us into our topic here. But my friend is having a baby, and she's so scared. She is so scared about having a baby. I'm like, girl, people have been doing this since the beginning of time with no modern conveniences. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna check into a nice hospital with your nice little Jewish doctor and your nice little Jewish mother right next to you, and you're gonna have a baby. She's worried because she's not having a baby with a partner. She doesn't have a husband. She doesn't have a wife.
Oh my gosh!
Sort of a single lady having a baby.
50-year-old friend of mine had a baby a year ago by herself. And she is like, one thing people can stop saying to me, which is, "You wanted this." If people could stop saying that to me and just go, "Oh, that is too bad." But
now,
my friend Noam,
it was on purpose.
On purpose, because it was a science baby. She had to be squirted up and everything.
No way.
And the kid is adorable, but she also has a dog, and she is a single person.
You know what? Let me say, anytime past 40, I'm done. I'm not having anything. I have a dog. I love her, but when she's gone, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to take.
You can say that. I know you're myself. You're not wrong. I have that same opinion about. We have 2 dogs, a cat, and a mother-in-law, and they all live with us. And when everybody's gone, I've offered to move into assisted living. It'll free up the space, and it's not that I don't love all of them.
That's not a bad idea, but there's so much today that, I mean, you don't even have to feel having a baby now, right? They give you a shot in the spine, don't they? This is like the whole thing. You get good drugs.
They got good drugs. You might be simplifying it. Not gonna say you're. And Noam isn't poor, but you got to be super rich to have like a team, like to have a night nanny and a daycare person, and then someone to walk the dog. And so she doesn't sleep a lot, but I mean, she lived through the first year. So I think
what woman with children does. I mean, that's what I feel like. This has been the plight of women since the beginning of time is that we have the babies, and because we have the babies, we for some reason aren't getting paid as much because we couldn't possibly be worth as much, even though we're the ones propagating the whole fucking species.
Right.
What's happening here?
He wanted it. He was the one who, in many cases, the dude was like, I need something that looks just like me. We got to do this.
Yeah.
There's some sort of genetic.
It is.
And I'll tell you this, I never wanted kids. And I used to, here's the history of my act, you guys. I never wanted kids, but I did this when we first got married. I was 39. And I never wanted kids until I met my husband. And then I was like, oh, I would like a tiny version of that. Because and it must have been genetic. It must have been something that happened, but it didn't work out. I mean, I had 4 eggs left, right? And they were marinating in extra chromosomes. So, so I didn't. I had 1 miscarriage, and sometimes Andy goes, you know how old that kid would be now? And I'm like, ew. I'm like, well, I don't, okay.
That's a little dark, but I like
it's super dark. I was like, do you want to be sad? Right. It's I'm going to drink a lot of water right now.
There's also that moment. Perfect. That's good for the ASMR too. Here's the thing though. That's I sort of I get that, because what I would do, I feel like, is be like, okay, so that's how old the kid would be now, but think of all the things we've gotten to do because we didn't have another human being sucking at our teat, like taking all of the money that we have, sucking up all of our time. And listen, I see when I go places and travel around, and you do the same, Jackie, you travel so much. When you travel around and you realize how hard it is for just you, an adult human with a suitcase and a backpack, you're not toting a bunch of shit around. It's not like we have pianos up on stage with us.
Right.
But when you see other people traveling with small children, aren't you like, how are they doing that?
Right. Right. I will say this. My friend Noam has encouraged me that when I'm at the grocery store and I see a woman alone grocery shopping with her baby for some reason, like, can't you leave it with a partner and then somebody go to the grocery store by themselves and you get a half an hour of solo time? But whatever it is, but whenever I see someone doing that, I offer to like pick stuff up for them. Like if like the soda is like the water's on the...
I would offer to hold the baby.
I don't want to hold the baby.
Hold your baby. You get the heavy lifting. Here's something you're not doing enough, Mom. Bend and squat. Bend and squat. So tell me, Jackie Kashian, knower of all things, I would say that my biggest bitch about history is just that people don't know it. I mean, I've watched you do your act with great success, but I've also seen jokes you say that are fucking brilliant slip by because people don't have a genuine understanding of what you're referencing because they don't know history. And
granted, if I'm doing a joke about the partisan of India into Bangladesh and Pakistan, that feels like a lot. No, but I will. But remember, I don't know if you watch any of the Marvel Universe TV shows. That's what Ms. Marvel is about.
Yes.
And so, and when we were watching it, Andy goes, "Wait, is that how Bangladesh and Pakistan were?" And I was like, "Yes, but why would he know? He has a degree in fine art and graphic design. I have a degree in political science, and I was raised by super nerds, man. And my parents and my stepmother was a big fan of, what's your source on that? And please tell me what your source is on that. And then if she didn't like my source, she'd say, I'm going to need a second source. And, which is what happens to kids with Wikipedia now, because you can use Wikipedia, I believe, as one source, but you have to have a backup source. Yeah. Because anyone can edit Wikipedia.
Right. I used to be a reporter. So I'm all about, I don't take anybody's word for anything. Whatever
I'm going to need a source.
I need a source, and it better to be a primary source.
Right.
I don't accept Wikipedia.
My source is almost always Facebook. I don't know. What's wrong with me is that I was having a conversation. I was at a lesbian hangout, as one will do. And my friend, Dana Goldberg, another comedian, very funny, very smart, and very wise in the ways of current events and queer history. And we were talking about the word lesbian. There are people lesbians that don't want to use the word lesbian because it identifies female.
My mother-in-law.
And because they feel that it's problematic and such. Now, look, it's not my favorite word. I also don't enjoy lesbian, but that's from a phonetics standpoint. I think it sounds lascivious. It sounds like I'm dirty lesbian. Ooh,
Right.
look at that lesbian.
That's what my mother-in-law. That's why she doesn't like it.
Gay.
Yeah, gay.
I just prefer gay. I'm a gay gal. I'm a gay. I'm okay with queer too because it's a funny word. Queer. Oh, look at that. It sounds like what it is. That's queer. You know what I mean? I get those two words. But I'm not a fan about the word lesbian. But what she was telling me was the sort of history of the language of that word and what it came from, and how the other side of that argument is that it's the only word that is ours. It is the only word that belongs to ladies who love ladies, right? Gay is sort of a more umbrella term, as is queer. And that lesbian is really a feminine word that cannot be taken away. And so
the island of Lesbos,
yeah, but we're talking about all this history, and I am lesbian. I didn't know half the shit she was saying because nobody teaches that, right?
Right.
This is what the problem is that I don't know the history of Bangladesh and Pakistan because in Louisiana, I got taught history by a football coach.
So he was telling you the history of the Packers. Do you know that they're the only football league that was owned by the city?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's every time the Green Bay Packers come up, someone always says that.
Yeah.
You're so funny.
But like Lesbos and the Sapphic is another word for lesbianism, and that was and I don't have all of that. It's right, and I don't have all the history on that, but it was Greek, and
of
course it was because the Greeks they were open. They were open to some same on same. It was nice,
and they were the first people doing anything, so they were doing everything.
They were doing everything, and they named
they
it.
Were inventing governments and coming up with democracy and Caesar salad. There was a lot happening.
An interesting fact that lesbian, like you said, I believe you said, came from the Greek island of Lesbos, where the poet Sappho lived. But there was a time when there were a lot of things that were lesbian wine. Anything that came from the Isle of Lesbos was lesbian.
Oh, was lesbian.
Because Sappho wrote...
it's like champagne.
Right, exactly.
Very good historical fact. Anything that comes from the region of Champagne is considered champagne. And it is not, even if it is the same thing as champagne, right? A brut or a nice dry sparkling wine. It cannot be called champagne unless it's from that region. And so, that's interesting. I never thought about that. But that's true. There would have been lesbian wine. There would have been lesbian men.
Right.
Conceivably, right? Though I guess there were no men there, and that's the point of...
No, this was an island. It's just a poet. She wrote erotica. She wrote poems about women loving women, and that's where you get the term.
And her name was Sappho.
Right. Yeah. And so you get sapphic erotica, lesbian, became connected to that.
There were men on the Isle of Lesbos.
Sure, this is not like Wonder Woman where they're all women.
Right? But I want it to be so badly. I want Wonder Woman to be historically accurate. So
Me too.
Bad. So bad. Oh my God.
Too funny.
I would be spinning right now in my underoos just waiting for it all to happen. But interestingly enough, and Jackie and I talked about this on her podcast because we were talking about Wonder Woman, which is what I dork out and am obsessed with. But the first season of Wonder Woman took place during World War II. She was fighting Nazis. And what's so funny is that show would come on, and then very soon after was Hogan's Heroes, which was another show about World War II, but sort of from the other side.
Well, Hogan's Heroes is... Here's how I like my Nazis. Buffoonish. I like my Nazis buffoonish. I do not like my Nazis when they are really good at being Nazis. I will not watch those movies. I will not read those books. I cannot be party.
Someone needs to dub over this court trial we're having with Trump, and someone needs to dub in Hogan's Heroes dialogue.
Yes,
I think that would be
yes.
hysterical. If I had this kind of time, I would jump on it. We need one of your little video editors who
That's
loses
it.
their mind with free time to do
'Cause
this. Would be because Trump would be Colonel Klink, right? Am I wrong? Like,
well, the Trump trial is now. I think so. He'd probably be Klink because he's so out of it, and he's such
a buffoon. I mean,
a
you said
buffoon
it.
and a sycophant, and just like and a kiss ass. When he's a kiss ass when there's no cameras running, and he's a blowhard when the cameras are running.
Of
So
course.
that's Klink for sure. And the trial is going on while we are recording this. So hopefully, by the time this airs, he will have been Mussolini. Just too soon, too soon. Anyway, I have rage.
Why I love you. Look,
I have
it's
rage, but
it's
I'm not.
and if you and as a political science major, I mean, you have to know one of my favorite documentaries is a documentary called The Boogeyman. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
No.
about Lee Atwater and
Oh,
how
wow.
Lee Atwater affected and basically it sort of traces back this dirty mudslinging politics, this sort of demagoguery we find ourselves engulfed in right now, and it traces it sort of back to him and
Yeah.
his need for power and control and just his sort of evil little tactics, which
Right,
were,
and then he co-opted the tactics.
win at all costs.
Yeah, win it at any cost, and then co-opting sort of the peaceful protest ideas and the peaceful ways of, between like 1931 and 1981, I think I would say when Reagan was elected, both sides of the aisle, right? Both Republicans and Democrats, whether they agreed or not, because rich people tend to not want to share their money, many of them, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, there are rich people who don't. But there was an agreement that infrastructure was to be worked on, that education and bridges and roads and going to space and getting factory works and getting people off the streets and into jobs and homes was a priority. And then Ronald Reagan came in, and he had co-opted all of sort of the hippie 60s protest movement kind of stuff, and the abortion, forced birth, anti-abortion people had co-opted all of that stuff, and they all just hit the streets and used all of our techniques. And so there are several documentaries about the history of, crazy Christians and weird, culty, it's the end of the world cults just co-opting that, and mega churches and all these things. And I wouldn't watch one of those documentaries if you paid me. I was like, no, I live for that.
Well, that's it. That's what I loved about this Boogeyman documentary, and I think you can find it on Apple TV, Netflix. I don't know where it is. It's called The Boogeyman. It's the Lee Atwater story. And what I find so interesting about it is I remember that election. I remember that it speaks specifically about that Willie Horton ad. I don't know if you remember this ad, but it was an ad that the Republicans put out about that Michael Dukakis had let a criminal out on a weekend furlough. And while he was released on furlough, he raped and killed a couple.
That's right.
And it's a commercial. And in the commercial, they show a line of prisoners who are all white, and the camera goes in on the one black guy while they're talking about Willie Horton, this guy who committed these crimes. And what the commercial doesn't tell you is that the furlough program that Dukakis was using was based off of the furlough program that Reagan had started when he was governor of California. But they don't get into all of that, of course. But it's a very racially slanting of that particular race. And it was meant clearly to instill a fear of black men in white America, which the Republican Party was clearly at that time trying to lay claim to. And it was to see and it didn't start there. I mean, there's plenty of arguments to be made that this all started with Nixon and back and back. I mean, we could keep going back. But I feel like what the difference was with this Lee Atwater guy was he did not, there, like you said, there was no ethics to it anymore. It wasn't about
he didn't pull
fixing anything. No, I'm going to win. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to win. And I'm going to do whatever I can to sink the other guy. It wasn't enough to win. The other guy had to lose.
Right. And it was a double down on lying. So which is where the Republican Party is right now. Yeah.
Yes, he's the guy who taught Karl Rove to be Karl Rove, right? Like, so this guy really is such a fulcrum of where we are now, because this is an election year coming up. And if I can't even, if I get one more text message telling me like, so-and-so is running against a Republican in Kentucky, I'm like, oh my God, I do not have time to worry about the Kentucky race. But also I know that, like, on some level, I have to give a shit about the Kentucky race, because that's going to affect all these other things. And this is why if we elect a Democratic president, it won't matter if he doesn't have the House and the Senate behind him to get shit done.
Right. And state legislatures, right now I'm working on a bit about how, as a woman, I am just several holes and a haircut. And that's what they're legislating. That's what they're legislating. They're just legislating against this.
Yeah. I don't want to laugh, but it's so true, Jackie.
It's just,
they're just nailed that.
All of the legislation starts, bitches, man. They just don't listen. and you're like, you have got to, you're kidding me. And it's so that's why when, I've even taken to researching the fucking judges now, because I have to know. I don't want to. For the love of God, I don't want to figure out where and why are we electing judges? But I suppose I don't know where judges should come from. I don't like the idea of them being appointed. I don't know if I like them being elected.
It seems like there should be just some system with which they get to the top. Where they're rewarded
they're just
for good judgments and good. But that is us. We elect judges, except the Supreme Court, which is the most important judges of all, and they're the fish is going to rot from the head, and it seems like these guys are kind of bought and paid for, which doesn't make me feel good.
No, and I wonder if they've always been bought and paid for, but I'm unwilling to read that book too.
That's true. That's a very.
It's always been corrupt. As soon as you have power, it starts to corrupt you.
It starts to, but the thing is there are people who were in power who part of their power trip was to this. I mean, if you look at a history of Teddy Roosevelt was a psychopath. He desperately was sad. His father was sad that he missed the Civil War, that he paid someone else to go fight the Civil War for him. Teddy Roosevelt's dad. And so, and then he never got the cred for being in the Civil War. And then, so Teddy Roosevelt grew up with that with his father's sadness. And so Teddy always wanted to be in a war. And so he started the Cuban, so he's in the Spanish-American War. It lasts 4 days? So he's on a horse in Cuba. This is an anecdote. He's on a horse in Cuba, and he's passing. It's after the battle, the one fucking battle this guy's in. And he's also a big game hunter, Teddy Roosevelt, by the way. And he's whatever, we'll talk about the things. But he's riding through the battlefield of dead people. And he says, I guess, to his valet or to his Batman or whatever, he goes, "This was so much more fun than hunting."
Oh, wow.
And you're like, hey, crazy motherfucker, please go home and destroy Tammany Hall, and also create the national park system, and also break up monopolies. I mean, he did some amazing, because
and he gave us the teddy bear. Am I wrong?
That's him, teddy bear. Everyone
teddy
was like,
bear.
Yeah. He was, he's like, but he was a psycho, and he was power hungry, but he also had this sort of noblesse oblige thing. My stepmother was a little bit like this. In the fact that She was.
I love that we brought it full circle.
Full circle. She accidentally saw Malcolm X speak one time, she told me. And she had just gone to a dance, and she couldn't tell her parents she was going to a dance because it was a dance with black musicians and black singers, and there were going to be a lot of black people there because it was at a black church on the north side of Milwaukee. But she wanted to go dance, and so her and a couple of her Whitey Magoo high school friends, they all went to this dance. But it was at a black church that were trying to get all of the kids to come and listen to Malcolm X talk.
Wow.
Right? So it was a trick. We'll have a party, and then Malcolm X will tell them that they need to also respect themselves and other people and stand up for themselves. So it was like this good thing. So she got to see Malcolm X, but she had this attitude that it wasn't, you know, like the difference between not being a racist and being an anti-racist, which is a newer thing that has been defined. And Jackie Kashian, sitting in my own little fishbowl with my own little castle, doesn't know anything until I'm taught things. And luckily I can hear shit and learn. So, but Nancy was not a racist, but she also had this very weird opinion that, like, black people were better than white people because of what they had suffered historically. And I was like, so that's interesting, but I still wouldn't run naked through the streets with money taped to my ass around anybody, right? Around black people or white people or anyone. It's just dumb, right? So,
but I love that. I love that analogy, though, that there is a difference. You know, I'm from the South, you know that, and in the South, it's very common for racial differences to be sort of pointed out and laughed about.
Right.
And I think a lot of people would hear that and say it was racism.
Right.
But I feel like racism, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, racism involves you acting a certain way towards someone. Am I wrong that it's an action?
Well,
right? Like,
but it can also be words. Right?
I can laugh with my black friends about the differences between black people and white people. I mean, people have made entire careers about that. Right. And that doesn't make me racist to laugh at jokes that are about black people any more than it makes them racist to laugh at jokes that are about white people if I treat everyone the same. Now, I don't believe I do that either. I believe all white people are racists on some level. But I will say that
all people are jackasses on some level. There's
yes, that's exactly right.
It's a constant battle until we fall over in a heap and die. So I mean that's the whole. I mean you just try not to, I just spend most of my life trying not to be a dick, and
and how's that going?
It's not bad. Hit and miss some days.
What's the over under on that?
Oh, I'm working on that bit too. But I will say that the history of black people with watermelon, for example. Do you know the history of that? Is why
I do not, and I did hear everyone's asshole clench up though when you said it.
Shit!
I wanted this.
It's
I want to know this.
Well, during Reconstruction, after the Civil War, there were small plots of so they were the slaves were still serfs. They were still slaves, right? Because of the company store and all this stuff, right? So, but there were small plots of land that people could grow their own produce on and live off of, and some enterprising people grew watermelon and started watermelon stands, and there were a lot of small black-owned watermelon stands throughout the South. And so a lot of black people were selling watermelon, and white people were like, no, this is income for these people. Let's make fun of them. And
wow.
And so it was just like, all you see are black people in watermelon. Well, it was the only thing that grew like a fucking weed, and they could sell it to them because everybody fucking loves watermelon. And you're like, but black people are the only people who sell watermelon. There must be something weird about watermelon. Yeah, they have 11 square feet. How about that? Yeah. And they're going to grow what they can. And so, but the thing is they essentially weaponized this thing, and it became, so when when people say, well, black people are like this and white people are like this, I am Armenian, and there is, if I've heard one person say it, I've heard a million people say it. Well, I'm on Armenian time. And Armenian time means that you're late. And except for the fact that that's not what it means. It means that you're inconsiderate. And but I've heard black people say black people time. I've heard Polish people say Polish. I mean, you're just like, yes, you can regionalize it, you can racialize it, you can make it about whatever. Well, this is what it's like in, rural Wisconsin. We belong to the Posse Comitatus and we don't want to pay taxes. Well, that's actually accurate. But I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous when you just want to go, because we're all just a stack of meat with different sausage casings. That's all it is.
I love you, Jackie Kashian. I love you so much. That is a wonderful wrap up as to what we're talking about. Go and learn something today. Look up why something is the way it is. Why do we laugh at something somebody says? Where does that story originate from? I think you'll be surprised. I learned something today.
Yeah, me too.
I certainly did. And I love you guys. Thank you so much, Jackie. You can find Jackie Kashian on her website, JackieKashian.com. She also hosts a podcast with Lori Kilmartin, another one of the funniest people who we got to get on this. The Jackie and Lori Show, and your podcast that I was on that we all adore. It's been going for a long time, called The Dork Forest. Find it where you find all of your podcasts. Jackie, thank you for bitching over biscuits with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. If you would like to follow us, please do so on Instagram at the BOB Podcast, or find us online, thebobpod.com. Join us next week for another deep dive into a podcast genre with another surprise celebrity guest. This has been Jackie Kashian, Mike Brignac, and Jen Kober, and we are out.